Hey, what's up? This is Harry Wagner from Harry's Situations, and today we're going to talk about all things spotting. Go left, go right, or something like that. So we're here on the Rubicon Trail at the iconic Little Sluice. So Little Sluice, one of the more difficult spots on the trail. Not as difficult as it used to be. There's been some modifications made to prevent people from creating bypasses, but it's still hard. It's still something you're gonna want a spotter on. Why would you need a spotter? If you're doing an obstacle in technical rock crawling, you can't see all four tires of the vehicle. So someone outside of the vehicle plays an integral part in you determining exactly where your tires are and where they need to be. With us today, we've got my friends Ben and Jamie. So Ben and Jamie are a couple that have been together for years, and they've even raced in King of the Hammers together. Typically, Ben is the driver and Jamie's the navigator. But today we're gonna flip the script. We've got the Rocco JL. We're gonna put Jamie in the driver's seat and have Ben spot for her and see how that goes.
My name is Ben Swain. I'm from Arvada, Colorado, and I run an off-road shop in Golden, Colorado called Slee Off-Road. We're in the beautiful Rubicon. We just got done guiding this Jeep JL through the Little Sluice obstacle.
My name's Jamie. I'm from Arvada, Colorado. I'm an operations manager for a software support company, and we're here running the Rubicon Trail. Today we're driving this Rocco 4x4 JL. Yeah, we've wheeled together for a few years. We race together. I'm usually doing the navigating. Yeah, I've never done this trail before, so I have no idea what's in front of us.
We'll turn right and forward.
Some people like to use verbal commands on the trail, like left and right, but I find that confusing. Do you mean the driver's left? Do you mean the spotter's left? Saying driver and passenger is better, but what's best, in my opinion, is using hand signals, like a closed fist to stop or pointing to the right or left. Not only is this possible from a distance, or even if there's a loud exhaust or other noise, but it doesn't betray emotion like your voice can. So even if you're sort of nervous about the situation, if you're just pointing right or left, or telling the person to come forward a little bit, it'll go a lot more smoothly. For more recommendations on hand signals, read the description below. There's a link there to an article I wrote on Driving Line about spotting. So you're driving a vehicle that neither of you really know very well. So how does that affect when you're spotting?
When we first came on the trail, it was a little more challenging with it being a new vehicle. And you just don't know where anything is.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing on the vehicle other than the steering wheel and the instrument cluster. This particular one has a big light bar bolted to the top of the hood, so it adds a little extra challenge to it.
Yeah, I agree. It feels big. It's hard to see out of, especially being a little bit shorter, but it rides nice. It feels stable on everything and climbs, so.
So a lot of times, certainly in off-road motorsports, but I think even recreationally, the driver gets all the glory, right? Everybody knows who Robbie Gordon is. No one knows necessarily who Kellen Walsh is or who the guy is that is navigating. So Jamie and I both navigate for Ben in off-road racing, but Ben's spotting for Jamie this weekend, and that's important. I think the more technical the situation is, the more important it becomes, right?
Yeah.
I think it's good to play both parts. I mean, as a driver, sometimes you get frustrated because you're racing, so you're always in a hurry, and you don't always have the patience for that at that time, the co-driver or the spotter. I mean, one and the same. You just don't have the patience for them.
What are you saying, Ben?
From that control aspect, sometimes I like it being the spotter because as a spotter, now you have the control. I mean, a proper driver-spotter relationship, the driver's following every command of the co-driver, every command, because they obviously can't see out the window or out the vehicle or know where it's placed. So being able to get out of the vehicle, especially a vehicle you're not familiar with, I think it's a lot more of a comfort level to spot every vehicle. You can see where it is, you can see where it's going, you can see how it's going to react and kind of anticipate that. So as a driver, you need to trust your spotter, but it's not an addition, it's not a gauge, it's not an extra switch. I mean, the spotter almost has more control of the situation than what the driver does, and the driver just has to follow the commands or the directions.
Or should. Right. So, confession time here. The first time I raced with Ben in King of the Hammers. Okay, stay right. Coming over the top. We got bellied out at the bottom of Sledgehammer. There's a million people around watching. I'm in a big hurry. I don't listen to Ben when he tells me, like, take your time, take the radio so we can communicate. I'm like, this'll only take a second. And I grab a strap and I get out of the car and I grab the winch and I put the strap around a rock and it flies off, and I'm like, got all my gear on and my visor's still down on my helmet and it's fogging up because I can't breathe. And so sometimes communication is important, and the spotter needs to take feedback from the driver too, not just one-way communication.
It's a team effort.
Yep.
And as a spotter, I find the same thing. You may tell someone to back up and they're trying to get through the trail. Backing up an extra foot may make all the difference of making the line or not making the line.
Sure.
Having the driver turn all the way one direction or the other may make the difference of sticking your line or not sticking the line. So taking that extra time for the patients in both regards, I think goes a long ways to actually take less time to get the job done, even though you take a little bit more time to follow through with that action.
Yeah. No, that reminds me of, so there's Jason Pauly, one of the greatest rock crawlers of all time, was spotting for me once. And he'd say, okay, come forward. And I would just inch forward and he'd say, okay, now stop. And I was like, I didn't even go anywhere. And he'd say, now turn your tires right. No, not that far right. And I had never thought of him as a spotter. He's a great driver, but the precision with which he was like, okay,
Just
go forward an
knew
inch,
exactly.
turn the wheel, nope, not that far.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he got me through something that I otherwise would have never gotten through.
Which is a challenge in spotting. When I spot, I generally like to create a situation where I don't have to talk, because you have so many different things going on. You have the vehicles coming up the trail and someone might not be able to hear you. You may be running further to see the obstacle and then getting closer to the vehicle. So generally I try to set the stage of hand signals, because it's just very difficult. And as you're speaking, I think a lot of times your emotions sometimes take over.
Yeah.
And the stop it's the same stop, whether you're upset or not.
Right.
But yeah, trying to convey the information of when you point left or you point right or you point driver or you point passenger, how much of that is it? Is it all the way passenger? Is it half passenger? And trying to convey that while you're spotting, and that goes a long ways. And that's not something that I think just comes naturally. I mean, it takes both parties to understand that communication, not just one, which, yeah, if you're spotting someone you haven't ever met before, having that understanding of, hey, this isn't just a recommendation. If you are truly trying to stick this line, you need to follow the guidelines, and doing that from the first time meeting someone is difficult.
You and I feel that way in the race car when I'm navigating for Ben. Like, just his body language, how he speaks to me, I know if he's tuned up, if he needs to tune down, like where he's at. And,
Sure.
you know, when he's on we just read each other so well. It's just so helpful in being like leveling each other out.
And that's funny. That's something he's mentioned to me,
Yeah.
because I don't have as much seat time in the race car with Ben as you do. And we were at KOH the second year we raced together, and we kind of both, our tanks were empty
Yeah.
at the same time. And it wasn't until we saw lights behind us
Right.
that then Ben like, oh, we're out of here. And
Yeah.
he was like, why didn't you tell me to go faster? And I was like, I'm tired too.
Yeah.
So hopefully you can kind of help each other out. So there's a lot of other things about spotting that we haven't talked about, mainly related to etiquette. Things like, do you spot for someone you don't know? I personally have done it in the past. I don't like it when someone I don't know spots for me, because I don't know what their skill set is. So the best thing to do is ask. If a person looks uncomfortable, before you start offering advice, ask them, do you mind if I give you a spot? Can I help you out?
In order to be an accurate spotter, or to get an accurate spot, you have to completely trust the person. So if you don't trust them, it's not worth getting the information, because it's adding additional information you don't need in the first place.
Right. Yeah, and if you
Whereas-
don't know the person, or if they don't know your vehicle
The
either,
car,
right?
for sure.
Right.
If somebody has a four-door JL on 40s and you're driving a Samurai, they
It's
might
not
not
be
be.
the same line.
No.
Yeah, they might.
Everyone takes this line. I don't.
Yeah. Things when you do that to remember, or really anytime you're spotting on the trail, take into account things like the wheelbase, the tire size, the width of the vehicle. They're not all going to react the same. The line for a four-door JL is not the same line as for a Suzuki Samurai on the trail. So these are things you really have to keep in mind when you're out there. Ideally, you want to have a spotter who you know and trust, because you're putting your vehicle in their hands in essence. That's a really important thing. One controversial topic is stacking rocks on the trail. I'll confess, I've done it. I do it. I don't think it makes a big difference. If it does, I'll move it out and put it back where I found it from if I think it's a problem. But rocks get moved on the trail all the time. I'm not condoning building a road. There's a big difference between that and putting one strategically placed rock in order to make it up an obstacle. So you're not digging holes. You're not detrimenting the trail in a more extreme fashion. Don't be in a hurry. Take your time. If you're the driver and you're not comfortable, if you have someone spotting for you don't know, stop, get out and take a look. There's no harm in that at all. So you want to always make sure and take your time and be comfortable in any sort of off-road situation. So those are my keys to success for spotting on the Rubicon Trail. Did I miss something? Comment below and let us know.